All right, we've made it to week 8. Last week, your highest point scorer of the week was Patrick Mahomes. Not too surprising. I guess we haven't seen a quarterback be this too many times. At least off the top of my head, that's what it feels like. Anyway, also I'll note, I think going back to the draft with Jake taking Mahomes number 1 overall, I think he got some flack for that, and including from me. But he's obviously still alive, and Mahomes is kind of a guy to ride for till the end. That's what she said. But anyway, I don't think it's actually that bad of a pick. I think at the time it just seemed like a bad pick, in my opinion. But maybe there's something to be said about taking quarterbacks earlier, really good ones at least. As we know, Johnny's gone, got 12th, made it through 7 weeks. The Justin Jefferson injury really hurt him, I think. Justin Jefferson and Calvin Ridley were kind of his receivers, and the combination of Jefferson getting hurt and then Ridley, starting to produce a lot less than he did to start the season. And by that, I guess I mean compared to week 1. But just wasn't enough to get it done last week. I did predict it. Not that I wanted to see it. Anyone who I predict to get eliminated, it's not because I want to see you eliminated. It's just my actual honest prediction. So going forward, I'm going to try to keep predicting correctly. So stick around for my predictions, as well as I have another segment at the very end of my kind of general power rankings of the league. Let's keep going. Top 25% of last week, week 7. We've got Potter coming in first. I think that's his first star, I believe. We also got Jack and Jake coming in here in the top 25%. The average of this group is 135. It's up 10% from last week of 122. So we finally saw the floor go up, which is surprising because we had even more teams and better teams arguably on bye this week, but just better scoring. Starting to think the byes have no correlation to anything. And the bottom 25%, Ryan gets his first trash can. He also got Cooper and Tom here. Average score of these guys, 86. That is also up 10% from last week of 78. That's the tied for the highest average of the floor that we've seen, average of the bottom 25%. And that leads me to this slide, which we'll see that depicted, 86. We saw 86 in week 2, surprisingly, was our previous high. So I think from here we really should start seeing it climb. I mean, we have, 11 teams left in the league, so we're reaching that range of a normal standard 10-team league where, there's enough good players to go around for sure. We also saw the highest league average last week of 107, and the ceiling also rose. Not the highest we've seen, but everything went up last week, which this is what I thought I would see week over week basically for the entire season, but clearly that's not the case. But maybe we'll start to see it now that players are really that good, or all the started players are really that good at this point. But to be determined. Thursday night tonight we've got Bills at Bucks. I believe it's at Bucks. Last I checked, Bills are favored -8.5. Over under 43. I think the Bills have been struggling. I would take the Bucks +8.5 all day. Kind of like them. But some big players obviously to start the week that are being started. You got Josh Allen, Diggs, Gabe Davis, James Cook. I think Kincaid might be getting a start, and then you got Mike Evans, Godwin, and Rachaad White from the Bucks. I don't think anyone's starting Baker or anyone else on the Bucks, but a good number of big players that, if you get a dud from Josh Allen or if you get a dud from Gabe Davis, which we've seen that to be possible. It seems like Diggs is kind of impervious to that. He seems to always have a good week regardless, but Allen and Davis can always have some off weeks. I think Mitchell has James Cook and Gabe Davis, and those are both kind of, Gabe Davis is a big boom-bust play. Cook is a little more steady, but Cooper has Josh Allen. I think, this is off the top of my head, but I'm getting pretty good at remembering who's on what team. Joey's got Diggs, Kincaid. Someone might have been starting Kincaid, and then Saunders has Evans, and Tom has Godwin, and Rachaad White. Someone picked up Rachaad White. I don't think he's being started, though. I think I saw him on a bench. Anyway, that might have been JC, actually. That's my guess. I think I did that pretty well. But anyway, moving on. Monday night, the more important game, in my opinion, just because it's Monday. Raiders-Lions. Lions are favored as expected. I like the Lions even after they got kind of pummeled last week by the Ravens. You got Adams, Jacoby Myers, Josh Jacobs, Michael Mayer, Jared Goff, Amon-Ra, Montgomery, Gibbs, Laporta. A lot of players. I think all those I listed there are started in the lineup this week. I think the only one that's questionable is Laporta, because Mitchell might start. Darren Waller over him, or he'll start both. Who knows? But I think all these others are locked into lineups, and they're all good plays, I would argue. So, could be quite the decisive Monday night. I'm not going to go through every player and team like I just did. I don't even know why I did that for the Thursday night. I was just feeling it. But could be a very decisive Monday night game. Now looking at the rankings on points scored on the year so far, we're finally seeing Basali down here. Ryan is still sitting below an eliminated player now in back-to-back weeks. It's funny to see, but Ryan's got a pretty solid team going forward, I think. But yeah, you got Joey, Ben, JC, Jake staying in the top 4, and then not a lot of movement otherwise. The only reason everyone moved up 1 here is because Basali and Johnny came down. So Jack is the only player that moved down a spot this week. And Ryan only moved up because me and Basali fell below him as already eliminated guys. So yeah, middle of the pack stayed pretty similar. Everything stayed pretty similar this week, really. Now looking at the market or the economy. Tom didn't spend anything, so he's still sitting at 60. He owns well above twice the average market share, or right at twice the average market share. Ryan and Potter looking pretty good up there. I think they have good teams, and they have fab to spend. Ben and JC also have good teams. JC especially. I mean, JC I think might have the best team in the league right now, both above the market average. Mitchell basically right at it, just right below it, and then Jake, Joey, they got enough to work with, but they're a little below, and then Jack, Saunders, they do not really have much to work with, and Cooper was 0. So 326 left in circulation. The average in the league is $30 per team, so it's not a lot to go around now. Fab is getting way more valuable now. A player that you would have traded 30 fab for earlier in the season, like 30 is now the average of the league. So no one's spending 30 fab to trade for a player probably now. I mean, you might see that, like Tom. I could see Tom doing it because he has the money to spend, but like these big fab trades and even waiver claims, we're just not going to see them as much anymore. So curious to see how that plays out, given how little's left in the market. So yeah, we'll keep this going. I like this one. I know it was not a top 3 fab team that got eliminated, but it was a top 5. Johnny had 38, which doesn't sound like a lot, but that was top 5 last week. I predicted a lot of things correctly, so I'm going to give myself props. I did say I don't think one of these top 3 guys was going to get eliminated last week. None of them were even close. Well, that's not true. Ryan was a trash can, so he was close, but he shouldn't have been. Johnny took it, unfortunately, but we've still seen an above average market share team get eliminated every single week, so I guess that's the new trend to look at. So if we look at that for this week, it's going to be one of these 5. Tom, Ryan, Potter, Ben, JC, and I don't think any of them are getting eliminated either, to be honest. I think, according to how I have like my predictions and my rankings, I think Ben is probably the most likely of these 5, and I don't think Ben is that likely to get eliminated, but out of these 5, he probably is. So my prediction this week, we're going to see a below average market share team get eliminated. I think it's going to be more likely to be one of these 6. That's my guess. That's my take. Now the rivalry between Ben and Jake going into week 7. Jake took it again. Jake's had 3 top 25% appearances in a row, so he's taken 3 weeks in a row. Ben hasn't been bad. He's just been kind of floating around the middle. He hasn't been getting ice cubes or flames, just kind of sitting right in the middle, doing enough to stay alive. But Jake getting 3rd with 132, Ben getting 4th, just one behind him with 114, just narrowly missing that top 25%. Looking at their starter rankings, not a ton to point out. Obviously, Ben's got CMC, and that's kind of the foundation of his team, and the rest of it's pretty average. relative to the rest of the league. And then Jake, he's got Mahomes and he's got A.J. Brown, and the rest is kind of average. That's about all there is to say there. Some quick takeaways from Week 7. Tight ends, we saw some big scores last week. Travis Kelce, and I forget the other big one, but a lot higher average this week of 12. A lot of deviation, though. So you had some low scores, had some high scores, as it usually is. Oh, I must have, I forgot, I messed up this graph because Travis Kelce scored 30, and I forgot to show those other segments going up to 30. So Travis Kelce is like way over here on this graph. But we saw 4 tight ends in the top 3 scorers. So that's a third of the league, almost. 4 divided by... Yeah, I don't know what my math is doing here, but there were 12 teams last week, right? So 4 out of 12. It's bad math on my part, I think. Defenses, no top scorers, but 1 top 3 scorer. Defenses are becoming less and less important, I think, as the weeks go on. The average of 7. It's the lowest average I think we've seen on the year. Only one that really did anything. This was the Browns, I believe, and so that was your 1 top 3 scorer. So maybe it's not that defenses are becoming less valuable, because if a defense puts up 20 to 30, that is very valuable, but it doesn't happen that often. So, and you have the rest of your team carrying its weight now with better players in everyone's lineup. So yeah, this week, as I've said before, is the no bye week. So this should be interesting. I think a team that deserves to get eliminated will get eliminated, to put it bluntly. But Week 9, we have the Broncos, Lions, Jags, 49ers on bye. That's somewhat important. I think Week 10 is a big one. You got Chiefs, Eagles, Dolphins, Rams on bye. Those are some big-name teams with a lot of good players on them, so Week 10 will be interesting too. Yeah, that's it for that. Now into our graphs, as we always do. Next week versus rest of season, almost everyone's either in green or red here, except for Ryan, who is just below average on this week's ranking compared to his rest of season, which looks good. JC is way up there. He made some acquisitions this week to make his team even better, so he looks great for the short term and long term. Joey, Jack, Potter, Cooper, all up here as well, and in the bottom left, you've got Tom, Saunders, Ben, Jake, and then way down there is Mitchell. He's not looking great for this week or rest of season, according to the analytics. Now, your this week rankings, Fantasy Pros versus Sleeper. Mitchell is also down here on this, so Sleeper doesn't like his team either, essentially, because this one is, these are both off Fantasy Pros. So Sleeper also doesn't love his projection this week. It's, this is all normalized data, so this looks like there's a huge spread between this, but really Mitchell's projected what? He's projected on Sleeper 92. I guess 92 is not that terrible of a score, and then the ceiling here is like 115, or JC's projected 118, so 92 to 118, so it's normalized, so it looks like it's really spread out, but really it's close, so anyone can make a run to survive this week, and anyone can get eliminated this week. Cooper, Ryan, Ben in the yellows, just not as much agreement between the two platforms, but in the green you got JC, Jack, Joey, and Potter as well. I think they were on the green in the last one too. So moving into your positions, your rest of season position strength versus your budget. I believe last week only Ryan and JC were in this as well. It was only 2 people. I think, Ryan and JC. JC was way up here, but he spent a little bit this week, so he's still the strongest positional strength team, but just has less fab now, but still above the average. Ryan's looking good here as well. Tom and Potter with well above average fab, just slightly below average position strength, but it should be enough to, I think, keep them alive for the short term. I think neither of them are at huge risk of getting eliminated. Joey, Jack, Cooper, they have strong teams. They've just spent a lot, so they don't have a lot left to spend. Ben is kind of floating in this area where he's just above average budget, but third lowest on position strength. Jake is below this line, this average of the budget, but he also has low position strength, and Mitchell's right at about the middle of budget, but has the weakest position strength. So These three aren't in great spots, but it's not. They have enough fab that they can do something to get out of here if they survive this week, but not great to be in these spots. And Saunders' team is pretty average, just he doesn't have a lot of budget left to spend. So that is that. Now, how I've ranked you all up in this summary slide, I think JC, Joey, Potter, and Ryan still deserve to be here. Honestly, Jack, who I have over here in the top left, I think there's a case to be made that he should be here. I think just out of the 5, I think he'd be the most qualified to be here. If that makes sense, just because he has such little fab. He has 11. These guys are all sitting much better in fab. Joey's a little lower. Essentially, Jack and Joey have very similar teams, or similar situations where their teams are very strong right now. I think Joey's team is just that much better, just a little bit better than Jack's, and he also has just a little bit more fab than Jack, so hence why I think Joey deserves to be here and Jack deserves to be here. But I think very soon, if money keeps getting eliminated from the league, then Jack can very easily be here too. He's got a very strong team. Iffy in the short term, promising long term. I got Cooper, Ben, and Tom. I think so. Cooper essentially flipped Gabe Davis for Mixon this week, and he had the Josh Allen Gabe Davis stack, but Gabe Davis was underperforming. He was kind of becoming a liability, so instead now he gets more depth at running back, which is kind of nice. I think he could be solid enough to survive this week, but I think he's not completely in the clear. And as my normal take goes, I think usually one of these bottom 2 groups, someone from one of these 2 groups is getting eliminated. Ben, he has CMC, so he always has that to carry him. Even when he almost didn't play last week, ended up playing, still had a really solid week. And while Achane is out, he doesn't really have a great RB2 to fill in. I also saw he's starting Dak this week, which I don't love. I don't love Dak, regardless of matchup. But that could prove me wrong. I got eliminated because of Dak, so maybe I'm just still salty. But I think he essentially needs his CMC and his decent group of wide receivers to carry him. And Tom, I love his trio of running backs. He just has some tough matchups this week. And he doesn't have... And obviously he's promising long-term because he has a bunch of fab, so there's that too. So maybe I shouldn't have put Cooper down here because Cooper has 0 fab, I'm pretty sure. So yeah, Cooper's the guy with 0 fab. Yeah, 0 fab. So he really, doesn't have a lot to make it long term. But he made a good move this week without having to spend any fab, and he still improved his team. So if he can keep doing stuff like that, then he can be fine. In the danger zone, I've got Jake, Saunders, and Mitchell. Jake has some tough matchups this week. I think he's a little iffy at running back. I think I saw... Pull it up. He's got Madison and Tyler Algier as his running backs. Roshan Johnson has a chance to make his lineup maybe if he plays. Another thing to note there is Saunders has Deontay Foreman starting. And I think if Roshan is active, I think Roshan takes the starting role. And Saunders does not have a running back to fill in for Deontay Foreman. So, he can obviously do something about that between now and Sunday if that ends up happening where Deontay Foreman doesn't get the start. But he's going to have to pick someone off waivers. It's just kind of a dart throw. And Mitchell, I should note all 3 of these guys were in the red for all 3 charts. And I think that doesn't always align with me thinking you're in the danger zone, but in this case it does. Mitchell also has some tough matchups. I think he kind of needs Tua and his running backs to carry. He has 4 wide receivers that all kind of have boom-bust potential, or some of them do, like Gabe Davis. Josh Downs has been good, but I think he does have a chance to bust. So just some question marks there, for sure. Just no studs at wide receiver from what I'm seeing. But they all could be good enough to get him to next week. Is kind of the idea. He moved on from Devonta Smith and now has Elijah Moore in his lineup instead. But he gained some fab in the process of doing that. So yeah, going into every team, we got Potter, who only had a trash can to his name until this week, and now he gets his first crown, first top 25% appearance. But he's the number 1 last week. Lamar, Kamara, Gibbs. It's funny, I was touting his wide receivers, and there's not a wide receiver in his top 3 last week. I said Gibbs is on the up, I think, right now. Even with Montgomery back, I would love to see the Lions still use Gibbs. Like, I think he's a useful piece in that offense, and they need to use him. So I hope that continues. Also, my take was that I think Potter's going to win the whole thing. So in a weird way, I'm kind of rooting for him because I want my take to be right, if that makes any sense. I don't know why Fantasy Pros, you'll notice on some other slides, some injured players were put into lineups. And that's not that the owners did that or the managers did that. It's just that for some reason, they always put the most ideal lineup into this graphic. But Justin Jefferson's not playing, so that is stupid. I think instead of Justin Jefferson there, Potter has Jerry Jeudy. So, some serviceable flex guys. He gets Christian Watson for free. He's starting the Texans defense against Carolina. That's pretty good, even though the analytics doesn't love it. And as I've said, his wide receiver 1 and 2 are just studs. And you saw kind of a down-ish week from them, namely Cooper Kupp. I think Tyreek Hill was his 4th best player with like 20 points. Still has 49 left in the bank, so I think he's made some good moves this week where he didn't spend any money, and his team's still very solid. So Jake Ferguson works for now at tight end, I'll say as well. Jack's team comes in second after coming off his first place appearance. Now he gets second, so now he's got a star and a flame. Kelsey with a monster week. Browns D, there's your top 3 defense scorer. And Amon-Ra with 17. Looking pretty good this week. He has Joe Burrow starting now this week, and I think Joe Burrow, as the Bengals fan here, I think Joe Burrow's back to 100%, and I think even a tough matchup against the Niners, he should be fine. He also gets Brees in that trade from Johnny. Picks up Aaron Jones. Miles Sanders? Miles Sanders. Dallas defense he's starting. The fact that he got all 3 of these, mainly Aaron Jones and Dallas D for $3 is pretty awesome. He doesn't have a lot of money to spend. He gained some fab back in that trade with Johnny. I think that was probably the best move anyone had made last week was this trade he did with Johnny. But obviously, when you have a team desperate like Johnny, you're going to get the better end of it. So he gets Brees, Ridley, Warren. I mean, Brees is the best piece of that. Ridley could maybe bounce back. Start playing better. Warren's a decent flex play if he needs to play him. I don't think he is, but he gained 4 from that and only spent 3 on these pieces too. So he got a lot out of that trade if you consider what he did with the fab that he got. So his team is looking very good, I would say. Yeah. Now Jake's team, his 3rd straight top 25% appearance. He doesn't make a ton of moves. Takes some dart throws at some mid running backs that he kind of just needs to start. Here we are again. Kyron Williams. Obviously, Kyron Williams is on IR. He's not starting for him. He has Madison and Algier as his 1 and 2. That's not a great look. So, like I said, you kind of need your Mahomes and AJ Brown to carry you. Addison, we saw, can be explosive even in a bad matchup, so this could be fine. The analytics doesn't love Jonnu Smith. Tyler Lockett should be okay. Just a tough matchup. That Cleveland secondary is pretty tough. And the second flex could either be Roshan or Gus Edwards. So I guess to be determined on what he does there. Kansas City defense has a good matchup against the Broncos. So he's got a pretty decent looking team. But I think if we see just like a slightly bad week from Mahomes or A.J. Brown, then Jake could be in trouble. No joke. That's my take on him this week. But you could also see Mahomes and A.J. Brown combined for 50 to 60 points. So if that happens, he's probably fine. Now Ben's team came in 4th. Not a ton of accolades from him. He only has that one 200-point week where he got a star, but he's kind of been floating around the middle of the pack ever since then, which is fine. It's a fine place to be in a league like this. But eventually you got to start pulling away from the pack, I think. Christian McCaffrey's great. He'll always be able to ride Christian McCaffrey. Christian McCaffrey gives him some amount of safety every week, regardless of the rest of his team. I think he's got Purdy starting. He either has Purdy. No, he actually has Dak starting. I already said that. So this is actually Dak. Here's another mistake. This should not be Achane. This is, I believe, Kareem Hunt as his RB2. So not a great RB2, but not a terrible one. It seems like he might be taking over that backfield. I think I saw Jerome Ford is actually not going to play, or he's doubtful. So that actually is a decent second RB there. He's got a good slate of wide receivers. They're not like studs, but they're all good enough, I think, which in a league like this, like I said, good enough is enough. You just need to not be the worst. Evan Ingram is serviceable for sure. Lions defense, I like it more than the analytics says, because they're playing the Raiders, who might still have a backup quarterback in. So could be pretty solid this week. He trades away Edwards and trades for Hunt, nets spending $3, and then gets Taysom Hill and the Lions D in free agency for free. Taysom Hill's a nice play. I mean, you can honestly throw Taysom Hill and do your tight end and be fine as well. We've seen him have 2 decent weeks back to back. So, yeah, that's about it for Ben's team. Now, JC's team, he I think is the team to beat right now. I think he has the best team in the league. He finally spent a little bit to get Barkley for 16, Rashad White, I believe, for 8, Kincaid for 1, and then Kendrick Bourne for free. That was a late move last week, I think. Either way, they're on his team now. A lot of green here. You like to see that. Really solid. I was not high on ETN going into the year, but he's just proven to be just very solid and scores like every week, it seems. Barkley looked good last week coming off of his injury. Jamar and CD, and then you got Zay Flowers, Debo, and I think he's even got like Jacoby Myers on his flex. I think Debo might be hurt, so I think he's probably playing Jacoby Myers over Debo. But really solid core there. Yeah, he does have Rashad White. So Rashad White on his bench and puts Kincaid in at his tight end. I believe that's what he did. Pull him up. Yeah, Kincaid in. I don't know who he moved on from, but Kincaid's a solid play. Yeah, I think this is the team here. I think JC has the best team in the league, and he's got just above the average of market share in Fab. So he's looking pretty good. Now Joey's team. We know Joey's been really solid, really strong all year. His team is still really strong. I think I said last week the only area he really needs to upgrade is at quarterback probably, but this is not a team that unless something seriously crazy like what happened to Mark happens, you're not going to see this team get eliminated. And if he waits like 4 more weeks, there's going to be so many good quarterback options he can get for free. So he doesn't need to like hit any panic button on Kirk Cousins. Kirk Cousins works fine for now. His top scorer last week, actually, against the Niners. Didn't see that coming. He has Pollard and Amari Cooper. They have them in the middle of the pack. I don't love Amari Cooper's been kind of disappointing, but it doesn't help that the Browns haven't had consistent quarterback play. But really solid team overall. Swift is great. Diggs, Mark Andrews is a stud. Raheem Mostert and Pittman are great flex plays. Well above, the 1 and 2 in the respective slots, and the Eagles' defense is never going to be bad. They play the Commanders. So that's a good matchup. Makes no acquisitions. Just sticks with his guys. He's got a good enough team. He doesn't need to make any acquisitions. So 22 Fab is a decent amount to work with for the rest of the year. Now on to Saunders' team. No bottom 25% accolade for him this week, although he does have 3 trash cans on the year. All he does this week is acquire the Ravens defense. That's an upgrade from whoever he had. I don't know who it was, but it's an upgrade, I would argue. Regardless, they're the 4th-ranked defense this week. He's got a pretty solid lineup. They're showing Jerome Ford here. I know Jerome Ford is doubtful. This is where I said he has Deontay Foreman, and I mentioned earlier that Deontay Foreman might not get the start if Roschon Johnson is active. He might get some carries. I don't know how they'll handle that, but he doesn't have anyone on his bench that's a running back to fill in that spot. So he'll have to kind of scramble if Deontay Foreman is projected not to be the starter. But Brian Robinson, pretty solid. Playing the Eagles, though, that's a tough matchup. He's got some other tough matchups. DK playing the Browns is not an easy matchup. Mike Evans and Christian Kirk are great flex plays. I think strong flex plays can keep you alive. And then Kyle Pitts is always just a question mark. A risky play, I think, by any standard, but could be good. So Saunders has got to be feeling a little iffy this week, but not extremely, I think. Now Mitchell, last team before the bottom 25%, which, by the way, I forgot to mention, this is the last week where there will be 3 top 25 and 3 bottom 25%, because now we'll be at 11 teams, so there's only going to be 2 top 25% and bottom 25%, so 1 star, 1 flame, 1 trash can, 1 ice cube every week up until, I think, when there's 6 weeks left. I don't know. I'll figure it out when we get there, but going down to 2 after this week. Mitchell being carried by Josh Downs. Josh Downs with a huge week. I didn't love the matchup against the Browns. I was just talking about DK and Tyler Lockett in previous slides not having a good matchup because they're playing the Browns. But Josh Downs just cooked their defense. He had a great week. Big breakout week from Josh Downs. James Cook had a good week. Sutton. Mitchell has a pretty solid team here. Like a lot in the yellow. I don't think he actually is starting Sutton or Waller as it stands right now, but he can obviously make lineup changes before the week starts. But he's got a decent enough core that he could survive. Just teams in the league are getting better and better, and he didn't get significantly better. He got Waller, but he might not start him. Laporta was already a good tight end, so he has a second tight end to his team, a second startable tight end to his team. Gets rid of Devonta Smith and gets Elijah Moore and Fab, which is good from the Fab perspective, but I don't love Elijah Moore. I mean, it's fair, though, because Devonta Smith was underperforming, and then he spends that 8 essentially on Gabe Davis. So net, no loss of Fab there, loss or gain of Fab. And yeah, if you can have a big week from Gabe Davis, if you can get a touchdown from him, you're feeling a little better, but if you don't, you're feeling a little worse. So definitely a team to keep an eye on this week. Now into the bottom 25%. Tom coming in 9th. JT leading the way last week. I've said it. Tom's got a stud trio of wide receivers. Probably the only reason he fell into the bottom 25% is because Bijan didn't play, really, because Arthur Smith is an idiot and doesn't like to say anything prior to the game that, hey, Bijan's sick and he doesn't feel great, so he's probably not going to play. Nope, we got nothing. That burned me in 2 other leagues where I have Bijan and I lost by single digits, so I'm pretty mad about that too. But he survived, so that's all that matters. He still got the stud trio of wide receivers. Stroud, Pickens, Chris Godwin. Kittle's a fine tight end. And then Dameon Pierce in his second flex. This is just a team that's going to survive, if you ask me. Those running backs should carry you there for the foreseeable future, and he can make upgrades at quarterback and wide receiver. I don't even think he needs to upgrade from Kittle until like way late in the season maybe. So if he could spend some of his fab to upgrade quarterback and wide receiver, he's looking fantastic because his running backs are so solid. Analytics doesn't love his defense this week with the Rams, and they play Dallas. Yeah, it's not great, but not horrible. I think the rest of his team is fine, so he should be safe. I'm sure other people would love to see him get eliminated, get all that fab out of the market, put these stud running backs up on the waivers, but I think Tom's going to be fine for this week. Now Cooper coming in 3rd to last, getting an ice cube, getting another one, adding it to the collection. Josh Allen, he's been one of his top scorers almost every week, so that helps. I think Josh Allen has, in general, been looking a little disappointing this year, in my opinion. But Goddard had a big week. My take last week is, Josh Allen could be a bust. Gabe Davis could bust. Goddard's had some bust weeks. So they didn't bust. Obviously, Josh Allen and Goddard were 2 of his top scorers, but the rest of his team just lacked a little bit. Hence why he's in the bottom 25%. But it was enough to survive. And now, like I said, he traded away Gabe Davis and got Mixon on waivers for the same amount that he traded away Davis for. So I think that's a pretty good move to basically flip Gabe Davis into Mixon. Also gets Atwell for free. That's just a bench depth piece, I guess. Yeah. No money to spend. So I think he did well with having $0, but hard to imagine with 0 fab that he could win the league is my take, unless he gets fab back. But people are now holding onto their fab a lot more strongly because there's less to go around, and it's kind of the time where fab is a lot more value. So anyway, we'll see how that plays out, but that is my take on Cooper. Now Ryan, getting the trash can. Jordan Love carrying the way for his team, or being his top scorer. I didn't expect that, but Ryan has Goff starting this week. Kareem Hunt and Hawkinson with decent weeks. So Ryan didn't have like a really high scorer on his team, but he had a couple other double-digit scorers that kept him alive, just enough to survive. But now with Montgomery back, and he acquires Devonta Smith, and Thielen's off bye. Thielen was on bye. last week? No, Thielen was not bye last week. When was Thielen on bye? Thielen was on bye. Yeah, he was. Okay, Thielen was on bye last week. So Ryan gets a lot of his guys back. He's looking a lot better this week. Last week, just because of the buys and some other things, injuries, put him in a dangerous spot. But he survived, and I think now Ryan is looking to make a push into towards the top of the league. I know he's sitting at the bottom of the league of all the alive teams in total points on the year, but his team is looking really solid now and should start pushing into the... We might see some top 25% from Ryan coming soon. That's my take. He trades away Kareem Hunt, gets $5 back. That's a good move because he doesn't really need Kareem Hunt if he has Eckler and Montgomery and 4 good enough wide receivers to start. Gets the Dolphins defense, the Saints defense, and A.J. Dillon. Only spends 1 fab. He's starting the Saints defense this week. They play... Actually, no, he's starting the Dolphins defense against the Patriots. Both good defenses. I think the Saints are probably a future... Oh, yeah. The Saints play the Bears next week. So he has the Saints for their next week matchup. So good forward thinking there. A.J. Dillon's whatever. Just a bench player. But 52 fab is a lot to work with at this point in the year. Now we have Johnny. We know he got eliminated. Funny thing to note is his top 2 scorers were higher than Ryan's top scorer. But that's just because they were really his only scorers. I think after Howell, every single other player was single digit. It just wasn't enough to get it done last week. He gets eliminated with 42 fab. I said it before. I think the Justin Jefferson injury was really the dagger that finished him off. If he had Justin Jefferson, he probably is still alive right now. He's probably not a strong team right now, but he's like enough to survive. Waller finally had it for a good week, and it, like I said, it wasn't enough. Yeah. Sad to see Johnny go, but someone has to go every week, so it is what it is. Now into my hot takes. Hopefully you guys are stuck around for this. So once again, I'm going to give my take on who I think is going to win the league and an honorable mention, and then who I think is getting eliminated this week and an honorable mention. For my who I think is going to win the league, I am kind of going to stick, unless anything major changes, I'm sticking with Potter. I like his team. I like the wide receiver trio of Justin Jefferson. I saw the latest was that he could miss 4 to 6 weeks, but that still leaves the door open for Justin Jefferson to return late in the season when Potter could still be alive, and then he has an absolute stud trio of wide receivers. I think as his team stands right now, he's around the middle. He's got an above average team for sure. Enough to survive. So I think if he gets to that point where Justin Jefferson is back and he spends the fab that he has wisely, I think he's in position. And now my honorable mention, I've switched it from Tom to Ryan. I like where Ryan's sitting at with fab, and I just mentioned on his slide, he's got everyone back from bye, Monty back from injury. He's got a really strong looking team, and I take fab a lot into account in my prediction here. So I think Ryan is looking pretty good as well to win the league. Prediction to get eliminated, I got Jake. Maybe that's going to ruffle some feathers, but I think it's possible. I could just totally see it happening. I think it's really between Jake, Saunders, and Mitchell. Those are the 3 lowest projected scorers this week, and I'm not going just off that. I kind of go off of bust potential too, and also if you're not a very solid in the middle of your team. If you're top heavy and then you have a bunch of like bums, then that hurts. And not that he has bums per se, but relative to the league, Algier as your RB2, I think Bijan's back in full capacity. Algier isn't doing much. Madison has been okay. His guys that are going to carry him, like I said, are Mahomes and A.J. Brown. And if both of those guys just have average-ish, below average weeks, then he's looking really bad. Jordan Addison can be really good. But then his flex plays I'm not loving them. And then tight end of Jonnu Smith is okay. Just nothing that's, and just a lot of bad matchups, a lot of tough matchups I'm seeing this week, and that's what a lot of this has to do with. So we'll see what he ends up doing. He's got Khalil Herbert and Kyron on injured reserve, so if they come back, he's looking better at running back, but he doesn't have a ton of fab to work with. But if he can survive this week and get some players back from injury, I think he can put himself into a better spot. But this week, that's just my prediction. And I got it right last week. I would like to be right every week. It's going to be hard to do, but I'm 1 for 1, so we're going to keep the streak going. So now my honorable mention, I have Mitchell. I think he's also in a tough spot this week with matchups and just some potential busts. Elijah Moore can have some pretty bad weeks. He doesn't have a high ceiling either from what we've seen. Gabe Davis, he's like bust 101. He's had back-to-back 1-point weeks. I mean, the odds would assume that that's not going to happen 3 times in a row, but it could. They play tonight, so I think Mitchell very easily, he has James Cook and Gabe Davis tonight. I think if they have bad weeks, if they combine for, let's say, less than 20 points, that wouldn't be terrible. Less than 15 points, if they combine for less than 15, Mitchell is in a tough spot, and I might move him into my prediction to get eliminated. But I'm making my prediction now. I think it's going to be Jake. Nothing against anyone, nothing personal, just my take. And now, very last slide, I have an addition per Ryan's request, maybe some others as well, to give my power rankings on the year. On where everything stands. And that does not, I know you would think that it should be 1 and 2, like Potter should be 1, Ryan should be 2, just because they are my prediction to win it all, but I think it's more about where teams are at right now. I think these are teams that are in good spots with the fab that they have to make their teams a lot better and make that push, but I'm more so taking into account how your team looks right now into this ranking, so keep that in mind. Here we go. I think I've been praising JC's team. I think he has the best team. Joey and Jack also extremely strong teams. So coming in at 2 and 3, 4 and 5 are where I have Potter and Ryan, who are my hot take predictions to win the league. And then at 6 we got Tom, who was last week my honorable mention to win the league because of his stud trio of running backs. So he's still right around the middle of the pack, I would say. He just has some areas he needs to improve, but he has the fab to do it, so he's in a good spot. Ben coming in right after him, he's just been right around the middle of the pack, so I think he's going to stay right there right now. I'd say he's a team where if Christian McCaffrey has a bad week, he could be in trouble, but Christian McCaffrey just does not have a bad week, it seems, so he should be fine. Cooper at 8 with 0 fab, and his team's pretty good, but pretty good doesn't always cut it now. So I have him at 8. Jake at my 9. Even he's my prediction to get eliminated this week. I've said all I need to say about Jake's team, I think. 10, Saunders. I think he's another candidate to potentially get eliminated this week. If I had a second honorable mention for eliminated this week, I would say Saunders. Just some tough matchups. Not super strong, but could be good enough to survive. And then at last, I have Mitchell as his team currently stands. Just mainly if I look at his wide receivers, I don't think I see guys that he should be starting in 3 weeks. And that's not a good thing to see. So if he can make some upgrades, then he'll be better. But long term, I don't love these wide receivers, I'll say. The running backs are good. Tua's good. Good tight ends now. It's just wide receiver that needs some addressing, but the wide receivers are a very important position. So yeah, that's my power rankings. I'll keep updating this every week. It shouldn't flip around too much. I mean, it could if you guys make like big blockbuster trades, big acquisitions, but this is where it stands right now. So good luck to everyone. I'm going to keep trying to be invested. Not trying. I'm actually enjoying being invested in this league as kind of an outsider now, but it's fun making these projections or these predictions, and hopefully I keep predicting things correctly. So good luck, everyone, this week.